Java provides a lot of general exception classes that we can use in our applications. But sometimes we need to create custom exceptions that are specific to our application domain. This is particularly useful if you're building a library or a framework for others to use. These custom exceptions help users and other developers better understand the intent and the actual problem. Let me show you an example. So here in our account class, let's add a method for withdrawing money. So public void withdraw. We specify an amount. Now here we need a field to store the balance of this account. So let's add it over here. Private float balance. As I told you in the second part of the series, we should always declare our fields first, then our public methods. This makes our code cleaner and more consistent. Now, in our withdraw method, if the value that we want to withdraw is greater than what we have in this account, we want to throw an exception. But what kind of exception? Do we want to throw an illegal argument exception? Not necessarily, because this is not a programming error. What if the user has $10 in their account, but they enter $20 to withdraw? So this is not a programming mistake. This is an exceptional event that we should anticipate and recover from. So in our exceptions package, let's add a new class. We're going to call this insufficient funds exception. Look at the naming convention. We always use the exception suffix to name our exception classes. This is the same convention that is used in Java. Now here we need to decide if this is going to be a checked or an unchecked, which is called a runtime exception. If it's going to be a checked exception, we should have it extend the exception class. Otherwise, we should have it extend the runtime exception class. In this case, we want this to be a checked exception because this is a situation that we should anticipate and recover from. So extends exception. That's literally all we had to do to create a custom exception. Now, optionally, we can add a constructor that takes a message. For example, we can type public insufficient funds exception. We give it a string parameter. Now here we need to pass this argument to the constructor of the exception class. We do that using the super keyword. So super message. We can also add a default constructor without any parameters. So public insufficient funds exception. Here we can call the constructor of the base class and pass a message like insufficient funds in your account. So when we create a new instance of this class, if we don't supply a message, this message will be used. Otherwise, the custom message that we provide will be used. Okay. Now back to our account class. Here we're going to throw a new insufficient funds exception. Now we have a compilation error because we haven't handled this exception. But as I told you before, when throwing exceptions, we want to handle them somewhere else. We don't want to handle this exception in this method. It doesn't make sense. So you press Alt and Enter and add the exception to the method signature. Now this method is saying that it may throw an insufficient funds exception. So in our demo class, we create an account. Now, initially the balance is 0. So if we try to withdraw, let's say $10, we're going to get this exception. This is where we need to cache this exception and display a message to the user. So we surround this code with a try-catch block. And instead of printing the stack trace, we're going to print e.getMessage. Let's run the program. So this is the default message that we provided in our exception class. So this is how we can create custom exceptions in Java.